At 5:30, 6 o'clock, we got down there for our walk. It was wonderful. Got a couple more minutes? Now, there's a car that I very much believe would still be there, called the Daimler. I was told that the Daimler caused Sir Orville some embarrassment. That when he was going to the funeral with the former Prime Minister, the Daimler stopped working halfway down the street. And so I couldn't quite understand why it was that the Daimler couldn't be fixed, or at least removed from the property. So in my usual fashion, I set out to get the appropriate papers to have Her Majesty's Daimler transferred either to be repaired or stored. All the papers were approved. The appropriate authorities were notified to come and get the vehicle. But, like the people say in the public service, governments may come and governments may go, but the Daimler stays on. I think she might still be there. The story is that this car would have to be shipped to England to be repaired. But I think it could very easily be put on display somewhere, just to show that we did own such a vehicle. Not that it will ever be repaired for use again. Now, there are a couple of things that are not funny. And I'd like to share them with you because the harbor is the most beautiful sight from Government House window. On a Sunday afternoon when the ships are going out, it's gorgeous, absolutely delightful. It's also delightful, especially on a Sunday afternoon, to smell the odors coming from the bakery, which is not too far away. And it's hurtful that should be happening, especially when people who are smelling these wonderful things can't get their hands on any of them. Then there's another sound, another thing with the smells also attract, and the sounds attract. For a number of months of the year, jumpanoos practice on the Southern Recreation Grounds and on any other flat surface, it seems, in that general vicinity. They couldn't care whether they finish at 1, 2, whatever o'clock. And I submit that Government House is the noisiest place to live in the country. Not only do several streets converge there, but every funeral, mostly Sundays again, they go out playing when it's the dirge, but they come back playing when the saints go marching. I don't know how many saints they left behind, but they really make a racket. There is constant noise there. Another Sunday afternoon experience, of course, is to the performing groups that go to the various churches in the area. They have, I suppose you call them parades, processions, and they would have their bands as well, so we were always entertained. Whether you wanted to or not, you had to look out the window, because you really wanted to know who was accosting you again. But I want just one more, please, and that is, I want to you about timeliness. And excellencies you may know without doubt, the misuse and abuse of time proved to be my Waterloo. Regardless of the care of our preparations, it seemed that the elves of delay, misunderstanding, crises, and downright rudeness found ways and means to sabotage punctuality, whether in-house or off-site. Among the experiences that tried my patience were the delays imposed when a senior representative required to be present at a function did not arrive before or at the appointed hour. When we were dressed and waiting to leave for a function and were told to wait until we received further notice, or when documents promised at a certain time or day failed to appear. Now, my husband was a military person, so his precision was even more than mine as regards time. And after he put on his suit and tied his tie, nobody crushed his clothes, including me. So when he had to sit and wait for half hour, 3/4 of an hour, because somebody didn't arrive, I guess I paid the price for being the Governor General. But there are still people, well, at least up to the time I left, there are people who feel that they can decide to have a function at Government House beginning at 7 o'clock and then arrive at 7:30 expecting us to be waiting for them. I said no. So if it's a permanent secretary or even a couple of ministers on occasion, I said thank you very much, say that I will no longer wait and I will go to bed. After that happened a few times, I think the word got around and it did improve. But I can't imagine why, if you made plans weeks and weeks, sometimes months in advance, people can't be dressed and get where they have to go, unless they got trouble like after this evening. We all saw the traffic and so on. That's excusable. But not to just come late, walk in, and preen from the back door to the front of the door. Whether to show their clothes or the shape, I don't know. It's just infuriating. And I don't think anybody ought to have to put up with that. Governor General certainly not. And I came to the point where I refused to do it. And so I think the word got out. Now the other one that is irritating, that was irritating, is the holding room. Now the holding room, I used to call the sheep pen, because I come from Long Island. Heard it there upon one's arrival, together with a few others who wore watches and knew the meaning of time. We were often offered a cold drink, presumably to ensure that you go to the bathroom before you go up front, and allowed to wait for the ones who decide that they're going to be late. Every time I went into a holding room, I felt diminished, almost to the status of a primary school child, hoping that oftentimes I could hardly wait to return to the safety of our suite in the residence, from which we would have been absent for more time than was convenient and necessary. And going out on evenings was tiresome. Receiving groups in the ballroom gave me some modicum of control. Unfortunately, if there's an event at, well, I call it Paradise over the bridge, we could wait in that vestibule, sometimes almost for an hour, before the officers would come and say we can leave now. That kind of rudeness used to irritate me no end. But of course, being the Governor General, one had to go and smile and be gracious and behave like a queen. Ladies and gentlemen, I try to give you some of the real facts of the life on the hill. Some of the events that the gentleman described were fun. Having the children, having visitors who were volunteers, that was another one of my objectives. And seeing, in one case, a story I'll recount to you before I leave, touches on what Sir Orville and Sir Arthur said. We entertained a group of men. These are men in their 40s and maybe even their 50s. And normally I would try to start a conversation and be sure that everybody participates. But this particular gentleman was sitting there and he was almost shaking. He was so emotional. He needed to say something, and I realized it. So I said, sir, what is it you need to tell me? And this big man was actually crying while he explained how he went to the same school as Sierra Walker is now, and he used to watch the back gate, which was a solid gate, so he couldn't see through it. He couldn't see over the wall. He could see these tall trees in the backyard, and he wondered what it was like at Government House. And this was the first time he had been in the building, and it completely unnerved him. And that day I realized that if I didn't sleep or eat, I would have to have those people in because it meant so much to them. So there were good times, there were miserable times, there were fun times. There were times when I felt like putting my hands on my head and saying I'm going home. But on the whole, being the Governor General is interesting. It is certainly an honor that few people would have. And so far, I'm the only woman who's enjoyed it. Thank you very much.